So I had a bash at this vid. In fact, I did a nearly 20-minute video on that, and I just thought, nah, I'll do it again. And I should have possibly just uploaded it. But we are back at the Church of Climate. Yeah, because that's what we're dealing with, the Church of Climate. I'm guessing this guy's from the BBC. Yeah, again, we see purple in the background and, John Swinney wearing a purple tie or variations on the theme. But, I mean, this guy's not asking the hardball questions like, "Why are we doing this?" Seriously, it's a trace gas. It's 0.04. It's 0.04% of the atmosphere. It's a building block of life. If we didn't have CO2, we wouldn't have plants, and it's at quite low levels, which are quite concerning. Yeah, none of that. It's yeah, but anyway, under fair use. Let's stopping occasionally for comment. I should actually speed this up because, oh dear, John Swinney, oh fuck, he can make 4 minutes plus sound like 25 minutes plus.
The things that Westminster does. Of course, there are many things that you have power over as the leader of the Scottish Government, as the First Minister of Scotland, but you don't have power over everything, which is why you want independence. But one of the things that Westminster still has power over is the decision about whether to develop new oil and gas fields. That is a decision.
See what I mean? Purplish background, tie, blah, blah, blah.
For Westminster. But SNP...
And remember, think of him like a church. Yeah? Think of it like, part of the elders. Yeah? Part of the church hierarchy within that church. And remember, you have to believe everything they say. Because you have to be in this church. You have to be in this church. And if you're not in this church, you're a climate denier. You're a heretic.
MPs sent to Westminster would have a vote on that. So really simple question. Do SNP MPs vote to approve new oil and gas fields, protecting jobs in Scotland? You keep saying up to 100,000 jobs are dependent on that industry here. Or do you vote against and keep the oil and gas in the ground?
Remember, that's 100,000 very high-paying jobs. I mean, you could argue for good reason, considering how they have to get to their place of employment, how much time they're away from their friends and family on a regular basis, and let's not forget, sitting on top of which is basically, by and large, a fairly combustible substance they're extracting at the seabed. So, yeah. But remember, let's not forget, these high-paying jobs, they come home and they spend. They spend money. Good money. Yeah?
It essentially depends on the impact of any of such developments on our move to net zero. So what we've
our move to net zero. What is that about? Seriously, are you quite literally saying to us, because they never tell you a figure, is it net zero is to completely extract out the atmosphere any CO2, which, let's face it, if plants didn't have or absorb, they would die. Plants respire oxygen. You see where we're going here? If anything's one of the most natural things in the world and its existence is our connection between plants and human life. And all life, basically, by and large. And they want to, extract it to the point of, well, it doesn't exist. Of course, it won't happen, because they really still don't have the tools, although they've got mad Bond villain ideas like extracting CO2 at great expense, by the way, out the atmosphere, and storing it underground like some sort of giant jacuzzi underneath the North Sea and so many other places. Remember, a building block of life. It's been put to no use. Whereas there have been so many examples over the years, even quite, you could say, environmental aspects of, power stations where they've been pumping CO2 into industrialized greenhouses and finding that what they were growing was something like 2 or 3 times, better yield, faster, whatever else, because, after all, higher CO2 in the atmosphere historically has led to more plant life. Yeah, better times. But we're dealing with witchcraft.
Said is that all licences and all applications need to be considered on a case-by-case basis based on their compatibility with our objectives on climate. So
I mean, remember, nobody in Scotland, which is a pretty cold nation at the best of times, and let's face it, when they keep going on about global warming, I would argue it's never been colder in recent decades. Yeah? Seriously. And he then goes on to talk about obligations internationally, all the rest of it, when we've never been so much industrialized. These are the people who literally have cut down 17 million trees in Scotland over the last 24 years. Yeah, these people.
There'll be that test is absolutely vital to be undertaken to determine whether any new development can be compatible with the necessary journey to net zero.
Because, hey, voting's an illusion. They're not working for you. You know, they talk about obligations, all the rest of it, except to the people they pretend to actually represent.
Let's make us a society. People watching knows what that means. You see,
do you know how many gas and oil fields there are kicking about just around the UK alone that are untouched, pretty much by and large? Seriously. The fact that anybody fears putting on some heating is an outrageous thing. And we've got, remember, trillions of tons of high quality coal in the UK. Not billions, trillions. And with modern power station and scrubbers and all the rest of it, and can you imagine how many greenhouses we could be chucking in CO2 at the rate of knots for huge crops and all the rest of it? Yeah, that's true science. Well, it's witchcraft.
Your predecessor, Nicola Sturgeon, when it came to opening a huge new oil field, Rosebank, said it was the greatest act of environmental vandalism in my lifetime.
It's just an interconnected death cult we're dealing with here.
You were in coalition with the Greens. We knew it was no more oil and gas. Now there's an election. It's all a bit hazy, isn't it? It's all about we're not sure. We don't say yes, we don't say no.
Well, I think the consistent point in all of those different statements you've put to me is the necessity of undertaking the assessment as to whether the development is compatible with our...
Their undertaking is part of the witchcraft of taking us under. That's basically it, seriously.
...objectives on net zero. We've got a climate emergency. None of us can duck that. I can't duck that, and I'm not prepared.
Think about all the billionaires that are buying up beachfront front property all around the world. Would they be doing it if it was supposed to be underwater? Look at so many historical monuments, all the rest of it, quite literally, at sea level, and they haven't fucking changed. In 100 and whatever plus years, many of them. And some of them far more than that.
To duck it. But I've also got to manage a transition for the oil and gas sector that enables that sector to...
go from high-paying jobs to, well, what? Not having jobs. They keep saying things like, we can retrain them so that they can all be part of more wind farms and we'll cut down more millions of trees to put up a 900-plus-year-old technology that really is quite shit. Seriously. Fuck off.
To establish fiscal sustainability and also to then be able to contribute towards the journey to renewable energy, which is a very significant opportunity in Scotland, particularly.
Even offshore, right, they're talking about wind farms. They've already putting them up, right? The amount of bird life that's dying at the rate of bloody knots, which is certainly inherent part of our ecosystem, if you want to call it that. But birds, for God's sake, golden eagles, all the rest of it, dead, bang.
In the field of offshore wind.
So you're saying some new oil and gas, possibly?
What I'm saying...
Tidal I'd go for. Tidal is as reliable as reality, full stop. You know why? Because every 12 hours, tide goes out. Every 12 hours, tide goes in. Seriously. In, out, in, out, in, out. Seriously. The technologies that are out there for tidal energy are phenomenal. Phenomenal. But no, let's go with the Teletubby, because, the public have to see, to be demonstrated that what they're doing is part of this religion of good. And yet, look at your bills. Yeah?
Well, what I'm saying is that every particular development has got to be tested against its climate implications. Now, what I can say...
So forgive me, but people are passionate about climate change, so you don't need...
No, they're passionate about the expense of their bills, the cost of quite literally buying things. And if they're having to spend more money on energy to heat their house, right? And many of them are still not heating them anywhere near what they should be heating them to. So you've got more mold, you've got more other things, you've got more health problems, you know, this continual burden on the NHS for so many different reasons, yeah? When heating never used to be as expensive as it is now. And where is this money going? Seriously. Seriously. I'd be up for all those people with Lamborghinis and whatever else. I'm not jealous of them. I really am not, yeah? They're high pumping out CO2 and we need as many of them as possible. Because of how low the levels are. But in the Church of Climate...
An assessment, it's obvious. It stays in the ground. Oil and gas stays in the ground. And that's what Nicola Sturgeon used to say. It's what the Greens say in Scotland, and you seem to now be wobbling on it.
Well, what I'm saying is that there has to be an assessment...
Mr. Softball Questions. Honestly.
...to determine whether or not that any licence application is compatible with our net zero obligations. Now, the Prime Minister has basically said he will licence 100 new projects. I think that is utterly irresponsible. That is climate denier status.
Climate denier? We are dealing with a religion here that none of them actually believe in, because they're all part of the occult. But they're good actors, that's why they're in their positions. And they can, well, get into their characters. Quite literally, to the point that they're believing what they're saying. Yeah. Truly phenomenal actors. Because they're literally not acting in our behalf or our benefits in any way, shape or form. They're quite literally there to sell you the idea that your life should continually go downhill at like some kind of shit show ongoing and live in fear based around an invisible gas that we've actually got really low levels of, and if we didn't have, we wouldn't have plants, and pretty much most life on Earth would just die off. We're dealing with, well, to me it's the essence of Satanism. It truly is.
Of the first order. So we've got to have a rational, considered process to look at every application to determine whether it...
And then tie this into, the cashless society. So, social credit score system. Yeah? Oh, I'm sorry. You've got the wrong opinion. Well, you can't get on that bus, that train, that plane, that whatever else. You've got a carbon footprint. Remember, they're literally telling you to worship a religion that is an interconnected death cult because they're going after a building block of life that we've never had. Well, it's arguably fairly low levels historically. The really low levels historically, CO2. And they're talking about extracting it out the atmosphere and pumping it underground. A building block of life that has been demonstrated so many times. You just think, look up, type in plant growing, CO2 cylinders, things like that. Because they know how massively different, how much benefit of pumping CO2 into any atmosphere helps in so many ways. This is just ridiculous.
Be sustained and compatible with our climate objectives.
You know what that means?
Our climate objectives is to literally destroy mankind. It's literally, that's when they talk about transhumanism and then talk about things like posthumanism. They despise humanity. Every aspect of what they do, it's not about the traditional family, nurturing family values, nurturing families, incentivizing the embracement of true traditional things that made our societies so great. The extended families, the bonds intergenerational, the shared knowledge. The reasons why people would go other places to visit because of their individual characters and how much their native areas, regions had been so enriching and so successful. They're looking for the collective. That you've got decades of of people being dumbed down while being shown sci-fi, and to feel comfort in collectives, in bunks, and limited resources, and rations, and whatever else for the greater good. There's social engineering on steroids, and I could do a much better job of this, absolutely. Your thoughts, and I'll speak to you soon.